first time the voice spoke, it wasn't our baby crying. It was a whisper, soft and deliberate, calling his name in a tone that didn't belong to either of us. "Ethan, wake up." It started 3 nights after we moved into the farmhouse. The place had that old, lived-in stillness. Wooden floors that sighed, faint smells of dust and hay trapped in the walls, and air so quiet it felt like sound itself was holding its breath. We were exhausted new parents, just trying to settle in and keep Ethan asleep through the night. We bought the baby monitor mostly for peace of mind. It was a 2-part set, 1 camera above the crib, and 1 speaker on our nightstand. The first couple of nights were uneventful. Occasional whimpers, soft static, nothing unusual. But on the 3rd night, around 2:15 a.m., something changed. I woke to the faint crackle of static, then a whisper. A woman's voice, clear but fragile, came through the monitor. "Don't let him sleep like that." I froze. My wife, Lisa, was asleep beside me. The voice wasn't hers, and it didn't sound like interference. It sounded close, like someone standing right next to the crib. I sat up and turned to the monitor screen. Ethan was sleeping soundly, tiny chest rising and falling. The room was dim, illuminated only by the soft glow of the nightlight. Nothing moved. Then the voice came again, lower, almost urgent. "He's going to stop breathing." I bolted out of bed, rushed to the nursery, and found everything exactly as it should be. Ethan was fine, perfectly fine. I told myself it had to be interference, maybe a neighbor's radio, or someone nearby using the same frequency. We lived on the outskirts of town, but it wasn't impossible. The next night, I changed the monitor's frequency. Still, around the same time, 2:14 a.m., the whisper returned. "He's cold." This time, the voice was different, deeper, raspier, almost like 2 people speaking at once. I felt every hair on my arms rise. I turned the volume down, but the voice only grew louder. The static pulsing in rhythm with its words, "Cover him now." When I checked the nursery, the blanket had fallen halfway off Ethan. My heart sank. I tucked him back in, trembling. I didn't tell Lisa what I heard. She was already struggling to sleep since the move. By the 5th night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The whispers weren't random, they were accurate. They predicted things, small things at first, like the blanket or a toy falling from the shelf. But always before they happened, and every time, the voice ended the same way. Ethan. On the 7th night, I decided to record it. I set my phone beside the monitor, hit record, and waited. At exactly 2:12 a.m., the static flared to life. The voice returned, soft and trembling. "Someone's in the house." I sat up straight. My eyes darted to the nursery feed, empty, quiet. Then the voice repeated it, louder this time. "Someone's in the house, downstairs." I grabbed the flashlight and crept out of bed, my chest pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The stairs groaned under my feet as I descended. Every shadow seemed alive. When I reached the living room, I froze. The front door was open, just slightly. Cold air drifted in. No one was there. I checked every room, every corner. Nothing. When I finally came back upstairs, Lisa was awake, pale, clutching the monitor. She whispered. It said his name again, over and over. I looked at the screen. The camera feed was flickering, distorted. But behind Ethan's crib, just for a second, I saw a shape. Thin, still, too tall to be human. And then it was gone. That morning, I checked the recording on my phone. The whispers were clear. Someone's in the house. Someone's in the house. Ethan. Then silence. Until the end, when a new voice, faint but unmistakable, said, "He's mine now." We left that day, packed up whatever fit in the car, and drove until the farmhouse disappeared in the rearview mirror. We never went back, but sometimes at night, when the room is quiet and the baby monitor hums beside our bed, I swear I can hear faint static again. And if I listen closely, too closely, I can still make out the words, "Ethan, wake up." The first time Emma noticed something was wrong, it wasn't the cold drafts or the creaking wood. It was the missing window in her bedroom. She could have sworn it faced the street last night. But this morning, there was only wall. Emma had moved into the house 2 weeks earlier, a small Victorian cottage far from town, with ivy crawling up its cracked white siding. It was cheap, too cheap, but she told herself it was a fresh start. She had just gone through a breakup, needed space, and this quiet house at the end of Ashgrove Lane seemed perfect. Until the nights started to stretch longer than they should. The first shift was small. A door that used to lead to the laundry now opened into the bathroom. She thought she was just tired. Maybe she'd misremembered, but when she woke one night to use the restroom, the hallway was longer, much longer. Her footsteps echoed too far, as though the walls had drifted apart. The air smelled faintly of wet soil, and the sound of dripping came from nowhere she could find. The next morning, everything looked normal again. She tried to convince herself it was sleepwalking, or maybe stress. But that day, she began marking things. She taped small sticky notes by each door frame: kitchen, bathroom, closet. She even took photos on her phone before bed. Proof, she thought, that she wasn't losing her mind. By the fourth night, the house began playing tricks in earnest. Emma came home from work, opened the front door, and froze. Her living room was gone. In its place was her bedroom. The same bed, same nightstand, same sheets, but rotated wrong, like it had been lifted and dropped in another world. The wallpaper seams didn't line up. The air felt too thick, like breathing inside a lung. That's when she started keeping track. Every night around 3:12 a.m., the house groaned. It was a low, heavy sound, like timber straining underwater. And then the floor plan changed. Sometimes the kitchen stretched into a tunnel. Sometimes the bathroom door vanished entirely. Once, she found herself trapped in a corridor that ended where her dining room should have been. She clawed at the wall until her nails bled. But by morning, the door was there again. She began drawing maps. Each night, she'd sketch where the rooms moved, connecting arrows and scribbles like a desperate cartographer of her own nightmare. It took days before she realized the pattern. Every new arrangement brought her bedroom closer to the center of the house. The outer doors, the exits, were moving farther away. She tried to leave, packed a bag, ran to the front door. But when she turned the handle, it led her into the basement. The air down there was wrong, thick with rot, filled with whispering sounds that didn't echo. There were footprints in the dust that didn't belong to her. Bare feet, smaller than hers, pacing in circles. Emma screamed and ran back upstairs, slamming herself into her room. She barricaded the door and waited until daylight. The next morning, she found her phone photos completely blank. White static, every image replaced. The notes she'd taped to the walls were gone. That night, she didn't sleep. She watched the walls instead. Around 3 a.m., the air grew heavy again, and she heard the shifting begin. Furniture scraped softly across the floor. Plaster cracked. The hallway outside stretched, darkened. A new door appeared opposite her bed. A door she'd never seen before. It was narrow, made of old wood, pulsing faintly like it was breathing. Something moved behind it. Slow, careful. The doorknob twitched once, twice, then stilled. Emma didn't move for hours. By dawn, the door had vanished again. She tried calling her sister that morning, her voice shaking. But when her sister picked up, the line was filled with faint echoing. Her own voice, repeating her words half a second late, like someone was listening on a loop. She hung up and threw the phone across the room. That night, the sound started earlier. The walls moaned and the floorboards shivered beneath her feet. She backed against the wall, clutching her flashlight, whispering to herself, "It's not real, it's not real." But then she saw it, her maps, hundreds of them, scattered across the floor. Each one drawn in her own handwriting, and each showing the same final design. A spiral, her bedroom at the center. The walls began to close. The air grew colder. She screamed and ran toward where the door should have been. But the spiral completed itself, room folding in to room, until there was nowhere left to run. When neighbors finally came looking for her weeks later, they found the house empty. The walls had sealed off the rooms entirely. Only a single piece of paper lay on the dusty floor near the center of the house. One last map, drawn in shaking hands. At the very center, in red ink, were two words, "I'm still here."